Facing the best team in the NBA on the second night of a back-to-back? No problem for the Heat, who notched their third straight win and the signature game of the season so far. We break down how Miami outplayed the Cavaliers on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And a reminder that you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Plus, your favorite podcast now is a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Heat Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com to start your day with the all-new free Locked On Heat Newsletter. Recording this after the Heat's 122-113 win over the Cavs. They beat the Suns and Cavs in back-to-back games over the weekend, and they have won 3 straight games for the first time this season. David, obviously a big-time win over a Cavs team that came into the night with just 3 losses on the season, the best record in the NBA. I've been asking for a stretch of quality basketball for what seems like multiple regular seasons now. And the Heat might be putting that together right now with these wins. This is quality stuff. And they're playing their best basketball of the season. There's no question.
Of that, there is no question. Absolutely. A third straight win and knocking off, look, an inferior Lakers team that's kind of been reeling defensively specifically. They took on the Phoenix Suns without Kevin Durant, and it was a close one, but it was still a good win. And then to knock off the Cavaliers and really not dominate, but at least be consistently good all throughout. There wasn't a bad stretch at any point throughout the 48 minutes of gameplay. And I think that was really impressive to see this Heat not just put pressure on early, but maintain it. They had their full team. They were fully healthy. They chose not to play certain players that we've seen get minutes over the last few weeks, and it still worked out very well for Miami. And one player who got a lot of minutes, who we'll talk a little bit later, a newfound Heat gem, perhaps, who really contributed, especially in the fourth quarter. And on top of that, just again, to be able to beat this team, you look at the offensive numbers, they're pretty even. Like, this is a really good Cavaliers offensive team. They've got some questions defensively, but they have blown the doors open on a number of opponents throughout the season. They can find a way to outscore. They get quick transition buckets. They've got a really potent offense. And you look at the numbers, not to say that they were pedestrian necessarily, but they shot well from the field. They held them down to their season averages. And the thing that really stood out to me was Miami's rebounding. That, I think, was really the consistent aspect of the game where Miami was really dominant in creating much more opportunity for them, not just to stop possessions for Cleveland, but also to ignite new ones for the Heat as well. So I really liked the way that Miami was just pursuing the ball, making sure that they were pulling down those rebounds, securing them, and again, denying the Cavaliers the opportunity to get a second chance.
They outscored Cleveland 19-10 in second chance points. And in a game that was, within it was like a 10-point game in the fourth quarter. Cleveland kind of got back into it, made it a 5-point game at one. I never really felt like in the fourth that I was worried about the Heat kind of losing this game. But, you also have to have a certain amount of respect for the Cavs, who have been, the best team in the league, by their record this season. Like, you're not going to just assume that you can walk through this win. And yet we did still get about a minute worth of garbage time here. But a tremendous Heat win. Worth noting, Evan Mobley goes down early in the game, isn't out the second half. So that is a big part of this. But you look at the rest of the box score here. I mean, Cleveland, 41 of 86 overall. Miami, 41 of 86 overall. Like, this was a very closely played game here. And I think you already made the best point. The Heat, wire to wire, just played good basketball. And Tyler Herro, 19 points in that third quarter, really kind of carried them in that second half. But then you got Jimmy Butler going in the fourth quarter. Duncan Robinson had big spots, especially in the first half. Bam, I thought, was just so important for them, especially defensively in this game. Led the team in plus minus at plus 20, and was efficient, offensively. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that Miami's best stretch of basketball has coincided with Bam kind of getting off the schneid a little bit offensively also.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Bam seems to have gone. I hesitate to say it, but he started off with some really good stretches against Anthony Davis against the Lakers, where he was really aggressive defensively, and then seemed to get his scoring going a little bit against the Suns with no use of Nurkic. Again, very comfortable, seems to be confident in his shot, something that he hadn't been prior to the Lakers game. Same thing today. While he wind up not having a huge monster game, you could see the comfort level kind of returning back to its baseline, especially when he's shooting those mid-range jumpers. Like he had a couple of drives where he went up against Jared Allen, kind of shoved him out of the way a little bit or created a little space there, wasn't afraid of letting go of that floater, much more comfortable in how it looks. And just, again, there were moments there earlier in the season where he wasn't sure what kind of shot was he taking. Like where you could, as you pointed out before, almost he was hearing Erik Spoelstra saying, don't shoot the mid-range jumper. Now he's saying, you know what? This is my shot. I've got to take it, especially when it's available to me. And he knows what to do. The touch is back. It looks much better. The floater, the shot there, the mid-range jumper, especially in the painted area, looks much more in form and fluid. So and he had a couple of threes as well. So you have to look at that and say, you know what? A nice performance for Bam overall. And defensively, I think he did a really good job. So it's all working out. And look, he doesn't have to handle the scoring load. He's kind of found his balance now where he's like, you know what? I don't have to be the team's top scorer now that Jimmy's back. And at the same time, he's still much more efficient in his shot taking. And Tyler, Terry, Duncan tonight, all of them can take over some spots there where they can carry the offensive load and let Bam do what he does best and just be more of a contributor offensively.
So the Heat have won 5 of the last 7 games.
Yep.
The 2 losses that they have, there's a bad one in Toronto. That's a tough one.
It is.
And then the Boston one, we did a sort of a, start throwing stuff off the ship type of, type of show after that. But, you consider no Jimmy Butler in that one. The fact that the Boston Celtics are an awesome basketball team. And maybe if you're the Heat, realistically, second night of a back-to-back on the road, best that you could hope for is just being competitive. And they were not competitive in that game, but again, with no Jimmy Butler. So you don't write that game off. I don't think that that's fair. But then you follow that up with 3 straight wins, and you can obviously poke holes in it. Like the Lakers are having a real tough go of it right now. Phoenix was without Kevin Durant. Cleveland didn't have Evan Mobley in the second half of this game, which was impactful to this game. I do think the Heat still outplayed Cleveland, even when Evan Mobley was on the court. But, these things you do have to consider. But the other part of this is that Miami's playing good basketball, and they're healthy, right? And so often, the beginning of this season, certainly last season, I think the opponents were the team that was sort of walking into sort of a skeleton crew Miami Heat team, right? Because so many games missed to injury and all these things. This team is finally healthy. You've got Jimmy Butler playing second nights of back-to-backs and all these things. Like it finally kind of feels like it's the Heat's turn to take advantage of some of this regular season schedule stuff, where that's not been the case for these last couple of years, and that's okay. I'm not going to apologize for that, right? Like, beat up on these teams, win your games. You're starting to string together some home wins, which is huge. You've got Toronto coming up on Thursday night at home. You got a long break after this weekend back-to-back. They don't play until Thursday, and then that's the only game of this week because then they don't play again until next Monday, the 16th, and that's in Detroit. So there's a real chance that they can win 5 in a row before they play the Thunder on December 20th, which is obviously going to be a really tough game. But, within this stretch, you got the Celtics, you got the Cavs, you got the Thunder. Those are the 3 best teams by record in the league. And within that stretch, you have some games against not so great opponents. And I think that's, like I said, I'm not going to apologize for the stretch of the schedule. Miami has kind of gotten the short end of the straw or the short end of the stick in that regard for years now, and they're finally healthy and taking advantage of a little bit of a soft spot here.
Yeah, I like what Tyler Herro said post-game. He said, we just want to concentrate on having more good days than bad days. And the Boston Celtics game obviously was a bad day, but you look at what they've done since then, and they haven't withered. They haven't let that loss, as debilitating as it was and how lopsided as it was, it hasn't defined them. They found a way to bounce back. And I think that's really impressive, is that this team has shown a resiliency that I wasn't, quite frankly, sure that they had. We've seen it. I kind of chalked it all up. I was still optimistic, cautiously so, about this group, knowing that they expect to be able to flip the switch in the postseason, but that's so far from now. And you have to be able to show some mettle. You have to be able to show
Yes.
some tenacity, and they've done that. Tonight's win, again, to call it a signature win, I think that's a no-brainer. It's the best game that they've played against a really good team. And yeah, Cleveland's on a second night of back-to-back, and Miami's at home. That's fine. That's what you're supposed to do. If you can go in there and handle this kind of a challenge and to do so consistently, regardless of who's on the floor for either opponent or for your team either. I mean, you have to be able to show the ability to win and beat these opponents when they have moments of weakness there, or when they have some kind of injury or something like that. You have to be able to take advantage. So I think it's really interesting that Miami has been able to bounce back the way they have from the Boston Celtics loss and string together 3 great wins and possibly even more. I think it is the start of something positive. I was surprised. Look, I looked at this week and it was supposed to be perhaps the most challenging week of the season. I know we had looked at a few stretches earlier when they went on the road trip, but they were without Jimmy for part of that road trip. And certainly they didn't live up to the little expectation that we had that they might be able to find success. But you look at this, and this could have been a really poorly defining stretch for Miami. They could have lost to the Lakers. They could have lost to Phoenix, regardless of who was out there. It was a tough game for them. And certainly hosting Cleveland, regardless of the circumstances, that's a tough challenge for a really good Cleveland team. And Miami handled it. And so I've been really impressed with the way that they've been able to stretch these wins together. And hopefully it'll be the start of something even more.
Credit Cookies is next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Mint Wireless. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Sometime between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. But with Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again, because with Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. We all know what that's like. Sometimes you get a plan, you hear, oh, it's going to be X amount. You're like, oh, I can live with that. And then next thing you know, you get your bill. It's a lot more than you thought. Well, no. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages, because Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless to service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Mint, M-I-N-T, mobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required, and new customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions do apply. See Mint Mobile for details. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen of the day. The best way to support the show is to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Well, David, it's another Miami Heat win, which means it's time for the tastiest segment in Locked On Heat. It's time to hand out some credit cookies.
Cookie guy, cookie guy, cookie guy, cookie guy. Stack them high like a cookie chain. Sharing with friends, spreading the fame. Every bite, life's never the same.
Mixed response to the Cookie Gang theme song so far. Like I'm having fun with it. But you know, it's been kind of hit or miss for some people. But you know what? That's just the way cookies
Who doesn't
go
like the
nowadays.
song?
I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't like it. I can't imagine a possible reason for it. But you know what? It's acquired taste, perhaps. But you know what? So is Heat basketball, and that's what we're basically coming down to. So I've got 6 players getting cookies today, and that's not surprising considering what a good game it was for so many and what a great signature win it was. We'll start off with the obvious choice, Tyler Herro. 34 points, 10 of 19 shooting, 19 points in the third quarter, 5 of 9 from three-point range, 9 of 9 free throws. Not a career high for him, but certainly up there. 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 2. Really, really solid game for Tyler, who continues to show that he is an all-star level player. I've also got 1 cookie apiece.
Wait, I'm
Jimmy
sorry. How many
Butler.
did you give to Tyler?
3. He gets
Oh, you
3.
3. Okay. I missed that. Okay. 3 to Tyler. Okay.
3 to Tyler, and then 1 apiece to Jimmy Butler, Terry Rozier, and Bam Adebayo. We talked about Bam and his defense and his consistent shot making. I thought Jimmy was really solid. We saw engaged Jimmy today, 6 of 12 from the field for 18 points. Really good game. Like, one almost feels like not enough, but only because I just had to dole out so many cookies for everybody else. He was a really strong factor in today's game. On a second night of a back-to-back, he played against Phoenix. He played well against Phoenix. He played against the Lakers. We did not expect that Jimmy would be this good. Like, these are the games typically where he might take a day off, but you know what? Jimmy said, no way, give me the ball, let me go to work. And he certainly did. He was trying to find mismatches. He was aggressive, bringing the ball up court, doing the engaged Jimmy point guard thing that we've seen over the last few weeks, where he's kind of setting the tempo, controlling the pace of the game, initiating offense, etc., and picking and choosing his spots as far as when he's aggressive to. So I really
went after Darius Garland in the post a couple of times, especially early in the game. I love seeing that. Got to the line for 8 free throws. It didn't. And this is the thing is with Jimmy, you don't always need star level Jimmy Butler, especially if Tyler Herro is giving you 34 points. Like, you don't need Jimmy to go out and score 26, 27 points. But being engaged, just 18 points, 5 assists, some rebounds, getting to the free throw line. This is good. Like, this should be, quite frankly, the minimum that you're getting from Jimmy Butler. When he's like less than this, it becomes a problem. But over this stretch, he has not been less than this. And that's, again, Bam finding his shot a little bit. Big part of why Miami's playing their best basketball of the season. But Jimmy Butler just giving you this as the bare minimum, also maybe the biggest reason why. And that's with Tyler Herro putting all these points on the board. So when your big three are basically playing like your big three, it really helps.
Yeah, Bam, I should point out also with 13 rebounds, 6 assists, flirting almost with a triple-double too, so a really solid game. And Terry off the bench, again, continues to provide that spark, 6 of 14. He's figuring out a way of playing, whether it's alongside Tyler, alongside Dru Smith, Duncan Robinson, whoever's out there on the floor. Terry has found a way to contribute, 2 of 5 from three-point range for his 14 points as well. So 9 rebounds. So he was part of the gang rebounding effort, certainly. And I like his ability to guard pull down rebounds in traffic. We've seen Tyler. We know Tyler is a very good rebounder, but for Rozier to be able to follow suit was really impressive. And then I've got Duncan.
I'm sorry. One thing on Terry. Played all 12 minutes in the fourth quarter along with Dru Smith. Both of those guys played the entire fourth quarter, closed the game in a very important game. And I like now this over the weekend, we basically saw Erik Spoelstra play Dru Smith, no Pelle Larsson, who's been out, which kind of opened the door for Dru Smith to maybe get some rotation minutes. I don't know if that was going to be a thing or not, but Erik Spoelstra has either planned or stumbled on playing Dru Smith with Terry Rozier. And I think that really helps Rozier not have to worry about being a point guard. He's not a point guard, right? He's a scorer. Like, if Terry Rozier has a position in basketball, it's bucket. Right? Like, he is a point guard in size only, but he doesn't play like a point guard. So putting Dru Smith on the court with Terry Rozier, where Dru Smith very much is sort of your more classic traditional table setter as a point guard, allows Terry Rozier to just lean into what it is that he does well, which is score with the basketball in his hands. I also thought he had some nice cuts. So getting him off the ball allows him to kind of embrace that part of his game too. So I like the little combination that Spose found there.
Yeah, I gave 2 credit cookies to Duncan Robinson for his 23 points, 7 of 11 from the floor, 4 of 6 from three-point range, 5 free throw attempts, also 3 rebounds and an assist and a steal. Had a really nice swat on Jared Allen at one point. Where Jared Allen wasn't expecting Duncan to do anything, and he just said, "You know what? I'll take it." Kind of shades of what we saw from Allen last year in the playoffs, and why there was some rumblings that maybe they might look to trade Jared Allen because Donovan Mitchell may not like playing alongside him or something like that. Allen was not really much of a factor today. Only 6 points, 3 of 7 shooting, only 7 rebounds. You need more from your big man, but go listen to Locked On Cavs if you want to update on that. Miami did a good job, I think, of mitigating his impact, and Duncan certainly had a really strong game. And then also 2 credit cookies for Dru Smith. And that, I think, should take up a lot of our conversation, because Dru Smith, we're as guilty of it as anybody. He had shown nothing in summer league, and obviously he couldn't because he was playing. He wasn't healthy. He didn't show anything in preseason when the limited opportunity came about. Certainly didn't show much in his minutes when he was out on the floor last year, and I know he got hurt and everything else. But, at any point in his stint in Miami, whether it was summer league or in gameplay, regular season gameplay or anything like that, Dru Smith hadn't shown to be much of a factor on either end. But you knew the Heat staff was high on him. Like they saw something in him that they liked, and which is why they kept bringing him back, why they kept inviting him to their Sioux Falls roster. Why they kept giving him opportunities, and they felt so bad when he did have that injury. Ironically enough, against the Cleveland Cavaliers, this might have been his best game because he brought a combination of high-level perimeter defense, on-ball defense, and some really nice shot making that he's shown over the last few games that he's played. He's become a real factor, and I don't know that you can take him out of the lineup. I mean, Pela's injury, as bad as it is for Pela, I think it might signify that Pela might not get much playing time moving forward, and you can continue to go to Dru Smith, and you won't lose much in the process, because if you're going to be playing him for the entire fourth quarter, it means that you have faith in his abilities as a two-way player, and I think that's kind of where Pela was, is that the idea that he was contributing a lot defensively, and maybe you could live or die with whether or not he scores or not, more often than not. But I think with Dru, again, you know that you're going to get high-level defense, and if he can knock down a shot or two, especially from the perimeter, you're getting something positive.
Yeah, I mean, when he goes 3 for 6 from three-point range, that really helps.
Sure.
But you compare it to guys off the bench like Jaime Jaquez, struggles with his three-pointer. Pelle Larsen's three-pointer kind of comes and goes. He's not a high-volume three-point shooter, and I don't think he's really expected to be that. So Dru Smith at least gets them up, right? Like, he's not volume like Duncan Robinson or Tyler Herro, obviously, but he'll put those shots up. And yeah, the Heat have kept him around for a few years now because they see something in him. And it's why I told everybody's like, oh, waive Dru Smith, get him off the two-way, give it to Isaiah Stevens. And I was like, you could think that. And Isaiah Stevens was often awesome in Summer League, but the Heat are keeping this guy around for a reason. So don't just assume that that's going to happen. And that's exactly what they kept Dru Smith on that two-way. They are really intrigued with this guy, and it's really cool to see him kind of have this game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, considering that last year, of course, that game was in Cleveland with their wonky court, but that's where, he suffered the knee injury and everything kind of went downhill for him. But I think he was a guy he was on the roster last year. Like, he was on the 15-man roster last year. This was not a guy on a two-way. The Heat had already decided a year ago he was good enough to make the regular roster. So, he's gotten his career back on track despite that freak injury that could have, honestly, like, for a guy on the fringe of the NBA, of an NBA roster, could have ended his career, and for him to have this game against this opponent, I thought was really cool. So, I do think that we're in to see a little bit more of Dru Smith going forward. We do have some questions about that. In terms of Dru Smith, if he's earned a permanent spot in the rotation. We're going to answer that and more when we get to your listener questions after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can get bet just $5, and you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Hey, how you liking those Dolphins, huh? What a comeback today in the late in the game and in overtime, getting a much-needed win there.
Always
really
good to beat
solid
the Jets.
effort. Yes. Aaron Rodgers looked really good, but guess what? Miami looked better. So that's all that matters. And, sometimes you're watching that game and maybe you want to check out the latest stats from other games, or you want to view live play-by-play. Well, you can do that and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today and join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show is to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. We're going to get to some of your listener questions now. We're going to start off with the Locked On Heat Insider community. If you want to join the Insider community on the subtext message platform, you could do that by following the link in the show notes. It's free for 14 days and goes to $4.99 a month after that. You get tons of great stuff over there, including first dibs at these mailbag questions. This one comes from Malachi, who writes in, is it time to give Dru Smith an apology? I think he's been responsible for helping us win these last couple of games. We talked about Dru Smith a lot in the last segment. In terms of the apology part of it, I do think that there's a lot of Heat fans that might owe him an apology. He looks great, and Erik Spoelstra, and it was sort of what I was saying before, the reason they keep this guy around is he does all those little things. And you can roll your eyes at that when Erik Spoelstra talks about it, but actions speak louder than words, and the Heat have kept this guy in the loop for 3 years now. Like, that that in and of itself says a lot. And you have to wonder why, for a guy who is not a high volume, quality, proven 3-point shooter, is, he's not like this crazy athlete. You have to why do they continue to keep this guy around? And it's because of all the little things he does. He had this possession in the fourth quarter, 2 offensive rebounds on the same possession, and then floated into the corner, got the ball back to Jimmy Butler, then floated into the corner, and then Jimmy Butler hit him for a corner 3. That could have been that was one of the daggers of the game. And it was just
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the stuff. That when you hear Erik Spoelstra talk about make winning plays, getting 2 offensive rebounds in a close game to make sure Cleveland does not have a chance to kind of cut the lead, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, the little plays thing is a good call out, because he really does, whether it's forcing a turnover or putting just enough pressure or coming up with a big steal or something, winning plays matter. You have to have enough of those over the course of a game, especially when you're might be facing a talent deficit, as Miami often does. And I think the fact that Dru contributes in such a number of ways makes him a very good candidate to continue to get playing time. He's a much better option than Josh Richardson. I think he's better defensively than Josh, and certainly I think he's provided a little bit of a more consistent spark offensively.
Josh is out of the rotation. He was even out when behind Pelle Larsson. So yeah.
Versus Pella, I'd say it's the same thing, because I think his defense is a notch better than Pella's. While Larsson certainly gives you a lot of effort, it doesn't necessarily translate into the same kind of tangible defensive impact that Dru has shown. He forces turnovers. He'll guard your top wing player or your top guard, and he'll be able to at least make things more difficult for him, the way he did on Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland, or whoever he was switched on to in the fourth quarter. So I think he's a better defensive player. And offensively, you're not asking for much from either. But so far, at least, Dru has shown more consistency as an offensive player than Larsson has. And so I think he's probably likely to continue getting playing time. And look, Alec Burks, who at least you're getting consistent offense from. You know that he's going to be able to light it up and chip in at least 9 easy points off the bench. But defensively, he's not anywhere in the same stratosphere as what Smith provides. And so I think Dru's going to continue to be the backup guard of choice there. He's playing over Terry Rozier. And
he's the only real point guard on the roster, right? Alec Burks and Terry Rozier are not, like I said, they are not point guards. Dru Smith, I think they do like the fact that he can come in and just help get guys the ball, and he makes things easier on his teammates. And that's, if you're a role player that helps make the jobs of guys like Terry Rozier, Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler easier, you're providing a lot of value to your team. And as good as some of these other guys are, and Alec Burks is certainly a bucket, and he'll have his moments, and Pelle Larsson has been really impressive. I don't think there's anything that he's done wrong. He just plays a different position. And right now it just feels like Miami needs one other point guard on the floor for some of these stretches. And so, yeah, I think the Dru Smith minutes are here to stay, at least for a little while. He's played so well. I don't see a way that Erik Spoelstra pulls him out of the rotation right now. It works. And again, specifically, that combination with him and Rozier on the court together has anchored that second unit in a very meaningful way. And those are really important minutes in these games. This one comes from William B., who writes in, should we be giving Erik Spoelstra more credit for finding a starting lineup out of his bum that seems to work now? What would the ideal second lineup look like if everybody was playing their career averages? And then we have one little bonus follow-up question from him, but we'll save that here for a second. But does Spo deserve more credit for finding this starting lineup?
I think that's fair. We talked about him needing to make some kind of change and finding the right balance, and it wasn't easy. Haywood Highsmith, mostly a defensive player, but he's been solid offensively as well, shooting well from the perimeter. Duncan, the flip side of that, a good offensive player, but defensively he hasn't been bad either. Still a little foul prone on occasion, but I think that's just the nature of who he is, and that's not really going to improve dramatically.
It's not as bad as it used to be either.
Right. Yeah, he's much more of a much more effective team help defender now than he was earlier in his career, and I think you have to continue to play him there. And as long as he's knocking down these shots, that's the whole thing too, is that he's going to have a bad game. He's had some bad games this season already, but tonight he looked fantastic. Against Phoenix, he looked good as well. These are the kinds of stretches where he has to show that he can at least provide some offensive sparks so that you can kind of handle. It's easier to weather the defensive problems and shortcomings as long as he's able to produce the way he has.
And
then
he's
once
and
you
the
have Jimmy and Bam
playmaking
in
part
there-
of him too has
Yes,
been really helpful.
yes.
Like as a second side guy who can do stuff with the ball in his hands, he's not just a spot up shooter. He really does contribute to sort of the machine of the offense now, and more than he ever has. And that we talked about that enough last year.
Yeah. So I think he gets a lot of credit. As far as the second unit is concerned, well, I think we found a nice balance there. I mean, I think it includes Kevin Love for sure. I think
Thomas
Terry
Bryant getting
Rozier-
minutes over Kevin Love in the second half in this one. So Erik Spoelstra has been willing to move around that backup center, whether it was Thomas Bryant, Kevin Love, even Khalil Ware got a little bit of run there. And he's currently in the G League. We see maybe if he comes up, maybe they give him another crack at it here. But they've got options, at least at backup center, even if none of them have sort of claimed that spot outright.
Rozier, Smith, and Hawkins, I think, are consistently going to be playing minutes as well.
Yeah.
My only concern, if anything, is that maybe I'm stuck in the idea and the potential there, but I still think that there's something to what Nikola Jovic can provide that nobody else on this roster really can. And I know it's problematic because he's still so raw in so many ways, and unfortunately, I think his confidence took a significant hit when he was benched, and now that he's not playing at all, it's tough for him to be able to claw his way out of the doghouse. But I still like the possibility of him, the idea of him being able to go out there and contribute. I just don't know that we're going to see it anytime soon. Do you?
Well, really quickly, that was the bonus question that William sent in. Is it possible that Nico is being held out for a potential trade? And I don't think that the Heat don't do that. No, he's Erik Spoelstra is very political when it comes to his press conferences. Like, he's not going to throw a player under the bus outright. He's not going to use the media to get his message across necessarily. He's going to handle that internally. But he has, in talking about Nikola Jovic going from starter to out of the rotation now, basically said he needs to figure out a way to impact winning basketball every game and work hard and kind of like these buzzwords that Erik Spoelstra uses all the time, but that matter to him a lot.
Sure.
And it's sort of the opposite of Dru Smith, who I guess is just doing that every single day and working his way into the rotation. For whatever reason, he's not seeing that from Nikola Jovic. And I do think it's fair to say that he's in the doghouse. Like, Nico's in the doghouse right now. And it's up to him to try to figure out his way out of it. This is a challenge for him. Like, Erik Spoelstra is challenging him. He probably is one of Miami's best 10 players. But if he's not giving whatever it is that that Erik Spoelstra needs to see behind the scenes, then he's just not going to play. And they've been fine without him. Like, Haywood Highsmith is better as the starter. Nikola Jovic was not effective as a starter. His rebounding numbers weren't up. He wasn't impacting the game on a play-by-play basis. Even with, like, you see Dru Smith, the offensive rebounds, and all these things that we're talking about with him. Like, he's not necessarily doing those in-between-the-lines kinds of things. And those are the things that the Heat want to see. So, yeah, I think there's a role for Nikola Jovic to play. Like, it's no secret we're big fans of his. Like, I had Tobin on Friday, and we were talking about this quite a bit on that show too. It's like you'd love to see him out there because the skill set is so tantalizing. 6'10" with the ball skills and the ability to push in transition, hit open shots. Also, for the record, has not been hitting open shots this season, which has obviously hurt his stock when it comes to his value in the rotation. But we'll see. I don't think it's permanent, and I don't think that they're doing this just to shop him. No, if anything, this hurts Nico's trade value. I don't know. Like, is there a team in the league like that is like, hey, we really want Nikola Jovic? Like, I don't think there's not a front office that's calling Miami like, what can we give you for Nico right now if he's not even in Miami's rotation? So,
I mean, you could hope to unlock him the way that maybe some other team has other prospects in the past, but the idea, I think, and it's got merit, is that if Miami can't get something out of you, there's a good chance you might not have anything to give. But you bring up a really good point also in that it's always what happens behind the scenes when it comes to players playing. It's always about what they do in practice. Do they stay late? Do they put in the work? And I'm not saying that Nico isn't, but obviously Spo isn't content with whatever he is putting out, and he needs to do something different or something more than what he's currently doing, or else he's not going to get his way back into the rotation, because that's just the way it works. I remember talking to Kelly Olynyk about it when he was on the roster, and for everybody who's clamored for, Olynyk and his return to Miami, there were plenty of times there where Olynyk didn't get much playing time, similar to what we're seeing with Jovic, and it was just a matter of him not playing and just saying, it was really difficult. I never knew exactly where I was going to play. You had to kind of just figure it out and fight your way through it. but you have to keep putting in the work. And eventually he did, and he was able to earn his spot back in the rotation. Nico's just got to go through it, and that's something that he has to learn at this point.
We'll see what happens. But for now, the Heat don't have any reason to change things up. They're rolling 3 straight wins. We have another game Thursday night against the Toronto. What did I say? The Toronto Raptors.
Toronto Raptors, yeah.
So we will have several episodes between now and then. So don't go away. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.